Hello again. This is James Merrigan having a conversation with an artist publication. This time it is Lucy Tevlin's Back of Whose Head, which I first saw as a digital image on Instagram, and I was immediately intrigued and I signed up for a copy. I'm not sure how much I paid for it, maybe a tenner, 12, something like that. But it's an A5 publication, beautifully printed. And you have this cover image of who we are told is an actor. Lucy Tevlin bought this image off eBay. And like other artists who work outside the usual mainstream parameters of art and the art world, Lucy dips into eBay like Marion Balfe dips into adverts, or a writer whom I had a lot of respect for, especially in the early days, Brian Droitcore. He used to write reviews around 2014 for Yelp, where you got reviews for everything from restaurants to mechanics. And he wrote this series of reviews in Yelp. And he was kind of playing around with different vernaculars and stuff like that. But you get artists working and playing in these alternative spaces. And Lucy Tevlin is one of those. She's a photographer and she's interested in the idea of the screenshot as photography. And there's a few projects she's done. She did another project where she bought a film, I think on eBay, and it was all wrapped up and it arrived in the post, and then she didn't open it, but she imagined scenes. So she took the, I think, 24 frame rate as a kind of numerical reference to imagine 24 frames. So she does this stuff with, I think, the gaze, maybe. So there's a thread of inquiry in terms of the gaze. Now, it's not this whole male gaze, female gaze, psychoanalytic gaze. It's more about a kind of peeking or a curiosity or an investigation around the gaze. And what better place to start than the back of an actor's head? So I'm like beautifully printed. You know that it is someone that comes from photography. There's a sensibility. Because I'm a screen printer, I'm very intrigued by, you can get bitmaps for screen printing that transform an image into lines, 45-degree angled lines or dots, or what I talked about before here, the diffusion dither bitmap. And it's just beautifully printed. There's no logos, Arts Council, etc. None of that. It's very plain. When you open it, it's stapled. I don't know, is it 16 pages, something like that? So you get on the first page, I hope you can see this. It says unknown actor, vintage 1960s, question mark, publicity photograph, 8x10, film star, actor, surreal. Condition used, good condition, price 6 sterling, 6.14 sterling, approximately €6.99. And that buy it now, add to basket, etc. So beautiful. But when you open it up, you get these sequences of images. And it seems that Lucy went on an investigation into who this actor was, maybe where was the provenance of it in terms of films. And she made a post on Reddit, so another space that she is inhabiting outside of the usual social platforms for art. And there's something really playful here, but she got lots of commentary that you can, if you go to the back, like comments. I'll get back to this. Is the piece I referred to actually earlier about the film piece. So that she bought on eBay. So suspended in the cold blank space of the eBay listing page, a film awaits. I am interested in its form, of what it might contain. I ordered a film based in the United Kingdom. Timmy Six Calves has been an eBay member since the 10th of July 2000. He has 100% positive feedback. Timmy receives a payment, £14.49 for 100-foot standard 8mm cine film wax cylinder. Patascope and music INSTR 1966 GV12. I also have 100% positive feedback. There's real humor here. As I wait for the film to arrive, I write a text. I imagine a second of the footage. The second is broken down into the 24 frames. Oh, that's it. Just as on the film. A knock on the door. A postman hands me a compact, light package that will never be opened. So this is the kind of the way in which Lucy navigates through the digital space. But this thing is not digital, even though it's acquiring or adapting the digital space, such as screenshots from film stills. Here's I think this is from Reddit, where it's the back of Psycho's head. So they're referring to this image that Lucy posted. Anthony Perkins, Shemp Howard, Alfalfa Schweitzer, Sean Connery. I thought it was Robert Mitchum actually in one of the images, and a kind of Grace Kelly. This reminds me of Night of the Hunter. I actually made a work based around Night of the Hunter, which I showed in 2008 at 4 Gallery, which was run by Lee Welch in the good old days. Here's is one of these images, which I think are beautiful. So this square, which I don't know what the shortcut is for this on Windows or Mac, but something like Command Shift 4 or something like that, and you create this box which captures a screenshot. But they're just beautifully nuanced tonal images, dusty. They feel like from an archive, or they feel there's a luminosity coming from behind them. I think it's the white that frames them, that gives them this luminosity coming from behind. But they're so intriguing, so beautiful. And it is a photographer's sensibility. And over again, time and again, I see photographers as being way more experimental in terms of how they are making work outside of the camera or using different spaces. They've always been good with the book as a gallery space. I think painters or other artists are still caught up in this, I talked about this before, the conventions of, catalog essays and stuff like this, that should, or it's obligatory to have them with your hardback embossed painting monograph. But I think photographers are doing something really good in terms of how to make zines like this that are playful. They're an artwork in themselves. They're not a document. They're not promo. there's just something, and this has been sitting around since I bought it straight away. I think it was released in January or February. So it's been sitting in my house and I've been thinking about it all the time. It's a beautiful thing. Um, I was thinking about, the analysis of this and this, why it is intriguing. And I think for one reason, it is this idea of the Rückenfigur. It's a German word. Um, I think if you think about someone like Caspar David Friedrich, and his painting Wanderer Above a Sea of Fog, I think, where you have this romantic landscape painting where this figure is looking out across these mist covered or fog covered mountains and valleys. And this idea of romanticism and melancholy, this kind of, you're looking at the back of someone's head and you can kind of inhabit them. I was also thinking about, I was presenting at this conference on painting, the death crisis, resurrection of painting at Triskel Art Centre in Cork a few months back. And there was a presenter, Rachel Magdeburg, and she was talking about first person shooter paintings. And she referenced someone like, the Instagram famous painter Jenna Gribben, who a lot of the time there's a kind of first person shooter perspective in her work where, arms or the back of a head or her girlfriend are kind of entangled in this relationship within the canvas, reflections, or they're blocking there's one of her girlfriend, Jenna Gribben's girlfriend, and she's blocking most of her face with a hand. There's this kind of stuff going on in the work, a doubling, a kind of uncanny doubling, which is interesting in terms of Lucy Tevlin's work. And also I'm thinking about someone like Andrew Wyatt, Christina's World. There's this woman lying in this field. Now I'm only thinking about this off the top of my head, and she's looking upward towards maybe a house where it's this beautiful American landscape. I don't know when it was painted, the 70s perhaps. And then I think about someone like Gerhard Richter and his painting of his daughter Betty. I think it's Betty from behind her head. She may be reading a newspaper, or that could be a different one. But there's one, I'm getting mixed up with his two daughters. But this Rücken figure is a kind of trope within painting. And but I'm also thinking about the voyeur, and when I look at this, I'm thinking about what this figure, the back of his head, is looking at, and there's a kind of voyeurism or a reverse voyeurism in that you're imagining what the person is looking at by looking at the back of their head. So you're kind of invited into this. You're not even invited, but you become complicit in looking. It goes, I think about this story in terms of voyeurism, and Jean-Paul Sartre has this story of a boy sitting in this stairwell in a Parisian apartment block in the 1960s, perhaps. And he's a young boy, adolescent, and he's looking through a keyhole. And what he's looking at perhaps is something sexual, but I don't think that is the evidence of that is not given up by Sartre. He's peeking, and I suppose you get a sense that even the idea of looking into someone else's apartment even if they're cooking the dinner, is a violation. But there's something about, the peeping Tom, etc. But this is a young boy doing it. So you're thinking about what is he actually looking at. And it's a kind of a sexualized scene, or there is that innuendo, or suggestion or intimation. And anyway, the boy is looking away and he's fine. There's no shame in looking. And then he hears a creak on the stairs. And all of a sudden, shame enraptures him, and embarrassment and fear. And it's the other looking at him from behind the back of his head, as in Lucy Tevlin's work, that the shame comes to be, or the fear of being caught looking. So you're kind of caught in this rapture, there's relationships between figures. But I just love how they fold into each other here. And there's a kind of repetition, but beautifully soft and nuanced. You can kind of see mirrors. There's a doubling, but it's just the softness of the images that is really compelling. You have here item description from the seller, but it's cut off, and you have this tanks at the very bottom that's been cut. No logos, no catalog text, just these beautiful images, grayscale, tonal. This reminds me of Robert Mitchum, although Robert Mitchum had a much more what would I say, forceful nose, but it does look like Robert Mitchum and Grace Kelly maybe, but I'm only saying that because they're the more well-known American actors. But it's this whole silver screen thing that's playing out. The clothing is beautiful, like the suit. It's not pinstripe, but it has that texture. Tweed, whatever you want to call it. But it's that pattern throughout that's really working in relation to the grayscale and the printing and just the texture of the whole thing. This very Hitchcock, this very like Night of the Hunter. Beautiful. The Reddit. And 37 out of 100 prints. Just a beautiful thing, and just lots to think about in terms of artists inhabiting different spaces, appropriating different images, buying images on eBay, that curiosity, and just, I don't know, I think it's the simplicity of it which brings complexity. And just a thread here of inquiry, exhausting a space like eBay to develop work, to generate work, I think is just brilliant. Once again, this is, I suppose, a trend of my thoughts around thinking about alternative spaces, not only to generate work, but to present work. What is refreshing most of all is there's no logos. There's just, and I think it was, I don't know if it was commissioned by Screen Service online. They're doing really interesting work with artists on the digital platform. And I've come to know really interesting artists through that platform, like Olivia Normell. So just really, really great work, and just can't wait to see more of Lucy's work out there in the world, or better still, in this format. Thank you.